And there we are. So the last time I saw that the recording was a bit um, choppy, especially in the beginning. I'm rambling a bit about not the topics now, recording itself. But maybe you have warmed up enough by now. I think so. That should look nice. All right. For today's workshop, I can shortly share my screen. So here we go. So the topic for today was why we care about cycle times, and for this I over to our Scrum Master. So Liv, take it away.
Yeah, welcome to the topic. So for a start, perhaps let's see what this actually is about. So I will share my screen and show you perhaps not so bad explanation and visualization of it. Um, you should be able to read it on my screen.
Yep.
Is it big enough?
Good.
Okay. Yeah, so what is the lead time? Lead time is the amount of time that passes from the point a new work item is requested to the point it is completed. So in our terms, that usually means a ticket being filed and ending up as resolved. And there's also a little graph there showing showing how that works. So essentially, this should be the time it yeah. In other words, it's the time to the end of the ticket, including the efforts to prepare the ticket itself. The other interesting figure is the cycle time. So the cycle time is described here as the amount of time a team of persons spends actually working on a work item up until it's ready for delivery. So what is the difference here? I think this is maybe something that can cause confusion when you're not used to the terms. So this is from the point where somebody starts working on it to say you're doing the work, you're researching what is required, you are taking the steps to finish it, but in that sense, it covers the actual work. You don't, for example, care so much when this ticket was put in the system. Does it make sense so far? I'd say feel free to chime in if anyone has comments, questions, ideas. So this is just to start with that we know what we're talking about. Yeah, and the next, I guess the question, and I will switch to our wiki as part of the motivation of this thing. Yeah, why do we care about these times, or what are they good for? So we define as a team, we define SLAs and SLOs. In other words, service level agreements and service level objectives. So what are those? I'll try and keep it simple. So the service level agreements tell you, let's just take an example of a high ticket. So it shouldn't take as much as a month, or ideally it takes less than a month for a high ticket to be picked up and being updated and being dealt with. And the SLOs in that way are even stricter requirements. That's the expectation we aim for if we can. Obviously, for various reasons that may not work out. But this is the internal goal in that way, where we say the high tickets should be picked up or looked at, or somebody to figure out what it is about within a week in the best case. And that's not necessarily the same because we don't necessarily guarantee that we can work on a ticket within that amount of time, but that's what we aim for in the best case. Because obviously we rather optimize for what we might be able to do, not for the worst case. Yeah, and essentially the other states are relative to that. So if you have a normal ticket, it is by definition less important, and so it is fine if a normal ticket is being considered within a month normally. And conversely, if it's an urgent ticket, it really should be looked at within the day. So usually we would make a point of really checking that somebody knows what the ticket is about. Um, yeah, so I hope that makes sense so far. Then one more thing I will share is also where in practice you would see these. So we have this lovely backlog status. I think you would have seen this on other topics as a regular participant. If you haven't, so you will recognize the, let's see, okay, that doesn't quite, hope the highlighting works. So you see the SLAs here and the SLOs, they're currently fine. Essentially what this does is it gives you an idea that there's something that needs to be checked. And the nice thing is it's automated, so we can see if we're actually keeping up with our own expectations or there's something to improve. And the letter is going to be an interesting keyword to switch over to. Is there? I need to check the chat. I can hear it, but let's see if there's a
Yeah, the
question.
question was, how does this table calculate SLA and SLOs? We have actual numbers there. So how do we end up with that number?
Um, in the backlog status here.
Yeah, yeah,
So these the numbers on the left is what we define that we want to provide, or that's our expectations. If any of those queries, I mean, I could show you the query right now. It'll be empty because basically the idea is if something here shows up, it's because it has been overlooked or somebody didn't have time to check the tickets or
yeah. I
maybe
think
even forgot to.
the easy
Yeah.
answer is the backlog status doesn't calculate the numbers itself, just counts how many tickets are there in the according progress query. And as you can see here, no data to display means there are 0 tickets showing up, means all good, because for most of those queries, what we did is we created according queries in progress OpenSUSE.org, that is the Redmine instance, to just say if there's anything to be done, show it up here, and then we act on it as a to-do.
Yep, that's a really good explanation. Thank you. Yeah, and actually I unfolded the filters here, so maybe that makes it more obvious. So what you can see is this is pretty much how we define it. So the SLA of 30 days, as defined in the wiki, is essentially defined as if a ticket hasn't been updated in 30 days, it shows up here. So that's a pretty simple rule to remember. So yeah, I hope that made sense. And it's also the same for the other ones. So you could see if here, for instance, it's just defined in the number of days. Um, and maybe one thing to mention, if that isn't obvious, this is also only for stuff in the backlog. We don't have that requirement for things that haven't been considered to be worked on, clearly defined, and all of that. Right. So this would usually only cover tickets that we've discussed enough. Yeah, so I will switch over to Grafana. So you should be able to see the Grafana dashboard in our Agile category.
A little bit down so that we can X. Yep.
Yeah, should, yeah. Yeah, so this potentially is getting to the more interesting part. So this is actually based on, similarly to what you saw in the backlog status, the progress queries, but actually goes a step further and looks at how much time it took for the tickets to be in a certain state. So this might be where it gets more interesting. And yeah, the basic explanation would be this is all of the tickets that are on our backlog and being worked on. And so on the top right, I guess you would see it. So we have the cycle time and the lead time, which we were considering before. And you can see, for instance, the mean cycle time um, goes up to 30, and the mean value is 3.2 here, for instance, right? Um, the mean lead time goes to 1,600, I guess. That seems, has that increased recently?
Yep. So that's in days. That means multiple years.
Right. Let's see. Yeah. So let's see. This is the last 6 months. So one thing we'll actually do in a moment, because I think generally that's always a good idea to kind of put this a little bit in perspective. So, for example, the last 6 months is what this counts for. So we're looking at 81. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what the maximum here covers completely. But this would mean the
The
quote
1,600.
unquote worst. Yeah.
Yeah, that means that there that we have resolved tickets which were created multiple years ago, but we finally resolved them now after this one. Which of course you can already see that those are the yellow dots in the red area. Those are really like outliers, but they happen.
Yeah, I guess those are usually the ones that we find we had an idea, but yeah, nobody really had some plan to work on it for a while. Yeah, so maybe the more interesting thing would be, well, depends on your frame of reference, I guess. But let's, for example, let's take the last 30 days, at least that might be an easier number to work with. So an interesting thing here would be, I guess I'll see how to show this on screen. So you can see in the last 30 days, we have a mean of 3.8 for the cycle time. And if, for comparison, we go to, say, 90 days, we have a mean of 3.5, right? So this is where we start wondering, what does this tell us? If the mean time increases, it could mean that we have more difficult tickets to work on. I suppose that'd be the easy answer, or more complex things to work on. Um, what else could it mean? New topics that we need to research more. Um, and one thing that is probably good to keep in mind here is these are fully automated numbers, right? So this also factors in availabilities of people. Like, I could take the numbers to be higher if, for example, somebody is ill, or the same could simply happen because we, for some reason, really like teamwork and help each other out. So it takes longer to work on, say, a less urgent ticket, and people team up to work on an urgent ticket.
So I
Um,
wonder for, let's say I'm someone that has an idea or I problem guys work on. I'm creating a ticket. What can I expect? When will you work on that ticket? How long will it take for it to be done?
See, this is the easy answers here, right? You see the mean value that should tell you the amount of time it takes, right? That's
So
the easy answer.
which value do I need to be concerned with when I open?
So if you want to know how long it takes someone to work on it, you want the cycle time. If you care how long it takes, including when you open the ticket because you're impatient, then you want to look at the lead time.
Yeah, that one. So I create a ticket, right? And then the ticket
Hmm.
is in new. What happens then?
Um, when it is in new, it may not be considered yet, so that will depend whether it actually ends up in the backlog.
Okay, so
Uh,
your product owner, whoever that might be, decides that ticket will be in future. What does that mean?
that means it will actually not be factored in here because it means it's not feasible for the ticket to be worked on. There isn't the capacity. Most likely, nobody will look into it. Of course, we also look into future tickets to remember if they might be relevant or if we can make time for them.
Yes.
But for now, unfortunately, the answer would be sorry. You'll have to be very patient
Yeah.
or ask
So
nicely.
right. So it just means not now. Okay. It's not planned now, and there is no better estimate on. Okay. In contrast, if something is added to the backlog, so when should I
Mhm.
expect that to happen? That like will it be done in minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years?
Um, Days, what I say, should be the answer, right? So um, that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
So,
So what the graph tells us with the mean value of the lead time 103 is, I mean 103 is actually months. Okay.
mhm.
So you could say within we like usually takes 3 months for a ticket to. But of course, there is a wide range. So the standard deviation of 240 tells us that there is really a broad range. It could be that a ticket is done within days, hours or days, or it could be in some cases that it takes years. Janis, you want to say something?
Each dot is one ticket.
No, each dot uh, is the mean value of all tickets that had been resolved on that day. So each dot is all tickets that had been resolved on one day. By the way, you're back to your bad microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe let's take a look at some
I try to
example here. So you could
no,
see,
no, wait, sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Take the last red bullet uh, in the line of 200.
Yeah.
In
On the
the
right
red,
hand side, the top, yes.
yeah, and explain this dot, for example, and what does it take to go down to green? Or
So that, let's see, that's on um, I guess you have the according query for that, Liv, right? From the backlog status, this how is it called? Closed yesterday. Is that the one?
Yes, that should be the one. Yeah. So maybe I can show that. Yeah. Let's see. So it should be this one, right?
Yes. So those, I mean, there's actually 5 tickets, and those 5 should um, account for that. So would be the mean of those. Or how was it? I don't know how it was calculated, but it was some aggregation of those 5. Was it?
Yeah, because essentially the way we get the numbers into Grafana is that we have a regular um, calculation. So I think it should be once a day. It's running and checking the numbers and comparing what happened
Yeah.
there.
And if you go to options and add the gated column, by that, then you that there was one ticket which was open since 2021 and 4 others since just the
Yeah, so this would be expected to really stretch the time here because it's considered how long it's been that the ticket actually entered the backlog and so on.
yeah. Certainly that calculation is perfect, and we are losing a lot of granularity there. Let's say those are limitations in the implementation, how it currently, but it still gives a rough. Could you go back to the Grafana graph?
Mm-hmm.
Now I wonder, what does the mean value of so the mean value for cycle time 30-day average, right? That's in the table on the right hand side. The lowest row, middle value 5, plus minus then the deviation of 2. It's like 5 plus minus. What does that number tell me?
Wait, which number are you looking at?
On the right hand side in the legend, there's the table with the calculated value.
Yeah.
I'm only looking at the lowest row. That's a cycle time 30-day average.
Right. Yeah.
So we saw there's a maximum of 8.
Mm-hmm.
A mean value is 5, and a deviation. So I
Right.
could say
Okay.
the cycle time is 5 plus minus 2, right?
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
What does that number, what should that number tell us? Us as in stakeholders outside the team, or maybe us within the team?
It should tell us maybe in the sentence that usually it takes us something like 5 days or close to 5 days to work on a ticket, whatever that entails. And this actually can already includes things I mentioned before, like availability and such. So in a way, it gives you a more realistic value, not necessarily just the amount of time we expect to take for a ticket to be worked on.
So what does that mean for stakeholder? When I see that a ticket is in the backlog, that doesn't count for the cycle time yet, right?
Mm-hmm. What it means once somebody actually gets to work on it, and if you actually see that somebody puts, say, a comment in a ticket saying this and this, I'm taking a look, and putting the name on it, putting it in progress, and whatever details they're adding.
Okay, right. So somebody sets the ticket to progress, then the
Mm-hmm.
time starts, and then usually after 5 calendar days, so it's not like
Mm-hmm.
business days, but calendar days, then um, I can expect that the ticket is usually what? What would be the when would that time end?
The time would end when the ticket is finished,
Yeah,
when it's
so
done.
that's, I mean, in 98% of the cases for us, I think it's resolved.
Yeah.
And like 2% would be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Janis?
On this line, right? The 5 days meantime. If the ticket is, how does it track a ticket that opens you work a week? It's blocked for another week
Uh-huh.
or two, and then you work 1 or 2 days, and
Yes.
it's
So
yeah,
um, blocked by definition that we cannot work on it. And that means it's not counting towards the cycle time. So that's excluded from cycle time. However, that's still included in lead time because, maybe as a stakeholder, I don't care why something is not forwarded for going forward. I'm just interested when it's done. I have access to that new feature, right?
right. Yeah.
So the cycle time is much more a tool to help us within the team to um, guide ourselves in being able to react quickly before tickets, are getting stuck long, and also to help us in estimating, because then, we can say like, okay, if I need to do this and this, then maybe we cannot really finish that within 5 days of hard work. Um, so then we would need to split the ticket accordingly. Or on the other side of the scale, there's work that just takes an hour. You don't need to create a ticket for that because then that would be too much bureaucratic overhead.
Any other questions, ideas, opinions? Does anyone find this useful? Or do you see why we find it useful?
But just to be clear, this is not the backlog. The yellow ones is not backlog. It's workable, right?
The yellow ones are tickets from the time of when they had been created until they are resolved, when they passed through our backlog. So it has nothing to do with workable. Like, think about somebody creating a ticket in the OpenQA issue tracker, and set it to future, and then 2 years later, we pick it up in our backlog and say, now a good time to work on it. And then we resolve it after, after the usual cycle time. Then that ticket would have a lead time of the 2 years plus the time it lingered in our backlog.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can also see that we have a huge standard deviation for the lead time. So there can be cases of, there is a yellow dot on the, what is that, like the 3rd of February or something, which is on the line of the 1. If you see that? No, further below, there on the x-axis it says 02/04, so that's the 4th of February. Just off the left of it, there's a small yellow dot. So apparently, this was a time when we did resolve tickets within 1 day or after 1 day, because that can happen. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe examples of this would be we have something like CI pipeline is breaking and we need to accommodate for network reliability, or maybe there's update in something we use that we need to account for and it's actually trivial to change. I
Exactly.
guess those would be things like that. Yeah.
Okay. So good point. You already explained in the beginning what we have as service level agreements based on priority. So you can see the effect of that also here, although it's a bit hidden because we have the aggregation of all the data and we cannot directly display the priority of the added. But the priority and other factors, of course, impact the lead time of an issue. Okay, so for example, something, when alert is triggered or some critical crash or regression happens, then of course we are much more likely to finish that much quicker than somebody coming up with a nice idea, but maybe the effort for that high and the value is. Okay. Does anybody else have questions or ideas about that? If anything else you would like to share?
I guess this is what I was thinking to show.
Sure. Then we are good. Would you go to the workshop topics and plan for that?
Mm-hmm. Give me a sec. Let's see. So the next one should be validation steps and best practice for multi-machine test setup and debugging.
Yes. So that we will do next week. Yeah, so a link about the actual graph for anyone within SUSE is available in the topic list. So you can take a look there. And the backlog status is, I can share the link for that. So this is available here. Then had the list of the SLO definition. That's from our wiki. I can also share a direct that. And then there was the monitoring graph. That's from. There you go. Okay, guys. So thank you, Liv, and thanks everybody else for participating. See you around next time.